Hey guys, Carl from Purple Moose Plays. Today I'm going to be taking a look at the third expansion and second campaign expansion for It's a Wonderful World, the Leisure and Decadence expansion, from designers Frédéric, Guérard, and Benoit Bannier. Apologies if I pronounced either of those wrong. And publisher La Boîte de Jeux and Lucky Duck Games. This is a sort of card drafting, tableau, engine building, resource management kind of a game that I enjoyed quite a bit solo in the base game. And I will talk a little bit about that in my final thoughts because I've never reviewed the base game on my channel either. But with that said, I'm really excited to see. I've played both of the previous expansions and I'm excited to see what new changes and sort of twists the new campaign brings. Disclaimer, I was given a review copy of this game from the publisher, but as always I will do my best to give my own honest opinion on the game. Also, due to the campaign nature of this game, there is likely to be a varied level of spoilers both in the playthrough and in my final thoughts. I will be playing only the first scenario, and I'll make spots or stops along the way to tell you when more spoilers might be coming up, and make sure to put lots of timestamps down in the comments below or in the description below so that you can skip ahead whenever necessary. With that said, let's head down to the table to see how the solo mode plays in this campaign through the first scenario, and then I'll meet you back up here to let you know what I think. Before I set anything up, I do want to remind you that as this is a campaign game, there is nothing that I can show you in this game without spoiling a little bit of the campaign. For this playthrough, I will be playing through the first scenario of the campaign, which will have a little bit of spoilers in it, but nothing too big, no new mechanisms or anything serious added. And then afterwards, I will spoil a little bit more, but I'm going to put in spoiler tags and I'll explain exactly what I'll be spoiling before I spoil it. So if you'd like to skip ahead to different tags, please feel free to do so at any time by clicking the tags below. With that said, to set up a game of It's a Wonderful World using the Leisure and Decadence expansion, begin first by placing out the game board, filling in the 3 slots below the board with these 3 tiles. And then finally finishing the setup of the board by placing out the crystals of the matching color in each of these 5 locations, as well as the center one here for the red crystallium cubes, and then the tokens matching each of these symbols on these 2 spaces as well. Next, we're going to take and shuffle the giant stack of development cards. Now, for this solo mode, we will be doing things a little bit differently because normally in a multiplayer game, I would just shuffle these cards and place them up here like this. But in the solo mode, because we're not going to be doing the normal drafting that you would in the multiplayer game, what's going to happen instead is I'm going to shuffle these and I'm going to deal out 8 piles of 5 cards each. And then I'll place the rest of the cards up here in the top corner. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I will come back as soon as all of that's done. And finally, the last thing that we need to do for regular setup is to choose our Empire card. For this playthrough, I will be playing as the Aztec Empire simply because their icon is purple, and you know me. They are double-sided, A and B, but for this campaign, you will be playing with the B side, so we'll take that card, and I'll set it down here like that. And if we were playing the base game, that would be it, and I would go ahead and get into the base game. But as I am playing the scenario, or the first scenario, of the Leisure and Decadence expansion, we also will then have to open the first envelope, or scenario 1 of the expansion. And inside this envelope, you'll see it's already open because I did play through this campaign completely once, and I plan on playing through one more time before my final thoughts at the end of this video. But inside that envelope is a set of rules and a stack of cards. But as far as setup goes, the only change in this first scenario is this single card cultural production. And I'll explain how this works after I explain how the base game itself works, but I'm just going to set this down here next to my Empire card here, and I'm going to place 1 crystallium cube on that first slot like that. And like that, we are all set up. Before we get into gameplay though, I do want to read you the little blurb of story for this first scenario, but also I need to choose what difficulty level I will be playing at since I am playing the game solo, and it is sort of a beat a score threshold kind of solo game. There are 4 difficulty levels: normal, difficult, expert, and prodigy, and the only difference between the 4 of them is the sort of final score that you need to beat in order to win. Normal being 50, difficult 60, expert 70, and prodigy 80. I'm going to aim for the difficult level, so I will need to beat a 60-point threshold in order to win the game. So with that said, let me go ahead and explain the base game rules, and then I'll read the story of the first scenario, explain how this scenario card works, and get into gameplay. So the solo game of It's a Wonderful World will play out over 4 rounds. And we will be taking 2 decks of cards, or 2 stacks of 5 cards each, for each of those rounds. And the way that it's going to work, and I'll show you how this plays through in just a minute when I actually get into gameplay, is I'm going to start by taking one of these piles of cards, and I might as well start by actually taking one, and I will use this first when I get into gameplay. But in these cards, you'll see a variety of different things. These cards will be of different colors. Each of the cards will have a set of icons down the side here, something down here in the corner potentially, then something here in the banner area right here, and then a resource that's printed here. Let me get a second card so I can sort of compare and contrast these 2 cards. You'll see this one has points in the corner, this one does not. This one has something printed here in the center, whereas this one does not. And the way this is going to work is during the turn, after I've taken this stack of 5 cards, I am going to choose for each of these cards to either place it into my sort of reserve area as a building that could be built later on in the game, or to immediately recycle that card and get whatever resource is printed here that can be placed either on a card that I've already added to my construction zone or directly onto my empire card. And why am I doing that? Well, there's a variety of different reasons. Ultimately, to score the most points. And we're going to be looking anything in this bottom corner like this or like this will be a total number of points that we will be scoring if we have that card built into our tableau at the end of the game. So this one, for example, would score me a flat 10 points, and this one would score me 1 point for every financier that I have at the end of the game. In addition to scoring, most of the cards, or at least many of the cards, will have resources printed here. When I build that card, it goes into my tableau, and then at the end of every round, you will see there's a production phase. And whatever I have in my tableau, I will produce. So the more of those I add, the more productive I am at every successive production phase. In addition, some of them will have tokens printed here in the center. That's a one-time bonus. When that card is built, you immediately receive whatever tokens you see printed there. And then this icon here in the bottom right corner is simply the kind of card that is, because some of these scoring conditions will score off of the type of cards that you have in your tableau at the end of the game. So again, I am going to choose of these 5 cards which to add into my construction zone to potentially add into my tableau later, or which to recycle away from the game, simply taking whatever resource is printed there in the bottom right corner of the card. The 5 main resources are materials, energy, science, gold, and exploration. And those are all things that we're going to be producing to be putting into these cards. This crystallium down here is not something that I can produce, at least not in this core version of the game. But instead, if I ever have 5 of any kind of cube that's been placed on my empire, I immediately trade those 5 cubes in for 1 crystallium. And you will see that some of these cards will require a crystallium. But even the cards that don't require crystallium, crystallium is going to be a wild resource, so I can use that in any location that I'd like to use. So after I've used these 5 cards to either add them to my construction area or recycle them for that printed resource, I will draw the next 5 cards and do the same thing. And after I've done that twice, I move into the production phase. During the production phase, I will check whatever resources I have being produced by my empire card and by any cards I've added to my tableau, and I'll produce them in this order as we move across this board. And the order is important because if by producing one of these resources, I unlock a new card that produces some of these resources, I will then be able to get those resources in this round. But vice versa, if these resources are produced and unlock a card that produces these gray resources, I can't use them until the following turn because I've already passed them in the sort of production order. So again, we will be doing that over 4 rounds. 1 stack of cards, keep or recycle. 1 stack of cards, keep or recycle, produce. and then the same thing 3 more times. And then at the end of the game, we're going to look at all the cards that we've built into our tableau and score them based on the scoring conditions in the bottom left corner. It's worth mentioning, I showed you the one card that said 1 point for financiers. All financiers and generals are worth 1 point each automatically. So those extra points will be in addition to that. So if I had this card that said 1 point per financier, that would actually be a second point because I've already gotten 1 point for financier just by nature of playing the game. There's one more small thing that we can do because we are playing the solo game. In the multiplayer game, we would be drafting cards. So we'd see quite a bit more cards than these 5 cards that we're receiving. So to give myself a little bit more flexibility about what I can do with my cards, at any point I can choose to discard 2 cards to the discard pile and draw 5 cards from the top of this deck. If I do that, I then choose 1 card from those 5 cards to either add to my construction area or recycle for its resource. Which means I am giving up 2 cards to take 1 card, but that allows me to cycle through the deck to find cards that are more helpful for the types of cards that I have been building up to that point. That's basically it for how the game plays. Again, the only thing that's being added in the first scenario of Leisure and Decadence is this 1 card right here, which says Cultural Production. And you will see on this card, there are a variety of resources down the side. And what this means is, every time I place a resource, I can choose to, instead of placing it on a construction building or into my empire, to instead place it onto this card. And once all of these resources are filled, I'm going to take that Crystallium and move it up 1 level further on this track. And then as I move it up this track, I will be unlocking whatever bonus it shows below that. So this first one will allow me to calculate a supremacy bonus +2, which I just realized I forgot to mention. During the production phase, every time I produce a resource, you would normally be comparing how many you produce against the other people you are playing against. But since I'm a solo player, in the solo game, if you produce 5 or more of a specific resource, you will take the token type shown above that resource. So 5 or more gray or 5 or more gold will get me a financier token. 5 or more black and 5 or more blue will get me a general. And 5 or more science will allow me to choose either financier or general. But in this case, if I have this space unlocked that says calculate supremacy bonus +2, that means I only need to have 3 or more produced of a specific resource. This next spot says supremacy bonus ×2. That means instead of taking 1 of those tokens, I'll be taking 2. The next one says recycling bonus ×2. That means during the drafting phase, if I recycle a card, I will actually get 2 resources instead of 1, which is pretty powerful. And then finally, if I manage to get to this final space, I will get a flat 15 points added to my score at the end of the game. So that's basically it for how the game plays, and hopefully that becomes quite a bit clearer as I get into gameplay. So let me go ahead and read the story of the first scenario, and I will get straight into play. It says, Scenario 1, the Cultural Renaissance. History. Obsessed with productivism, the empire is neglected to devote energy and time to intellectual pursuits. But in any society, you will find creative people. And since time immemorial, artists have also been engines that power empires. And so, peace has returned to the world, at least in appearance. At the heart of each empire, creative minds start to put things together. A little of this, a little of that, to create what will soon be called art. From that moment forward, each empire will face a choice. Hand over the reins to culture, or stay the course of productivism. All right, so let's go ahead and get into gameplay. I am starting with those 5 cards I already showed you. So I've got a gold card, Secret Society, that doesn't produce anything but scores points on financiers. I've got this blue card, Alexander's Tomb, that will give me 10 points at the end of the game, instantly 2 generals, and otherwise doesn't produce anything. That's just a big scoring card. I've got a gray card that gets me 2 science resources every turn. And a black card, a Zeppelin, that gets me 1 blue every turn. And another black card, the Tank Division, which also gets me 1 blue, but would get me a general as well. So taking a look at these 5 cards, I know that I start with 2 gray, a black, and a green. And looking at what I've got here, I wouldn't mind focusing on getting this research center. All I'm missing is one gray resource. But that's giving me green means I might want to start searching for some green cards. I also know I have black and green, but that black is going to be used here. So anything else I take may or may not be useful. Looking at the cards I have, a gold, a gray, and a blue, I'm actually going to instantly get rid of this tank division to take a gray cube and place it here because I know that I'm only going to be producing 2 and I need 3 to unlock that card. Then I don't particularly like any of these. It's still early game for me to have any sort of strategy on blue, green, or yellow, but I know that I need green, so I want to recycle something or discard something to dig through the deck a little bit. And all 3 of these resources, gold, and blue, don't do anything for the cards that I'm building currently, but remember I can always put things down here in cultural production. So I might look at doing that right now. So I'm going to take this blue card and this black card and discard them to draw 5 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Looking here, now I've got some green opportunities. This one looks great, but it's going to be giving me 1 financier and scoring 2 points for every gold card in my tableau. Which means I might want to start producing gold, and this one's scoring on financier, so these two might combo very well together. So I'm going to take that one from my 5, and I will place that one as well. I was going to use it for its resource, but those combo nicely if I can make that happen. But that means I need to focus on producing some gold because currently I don't have anything. All right, so we take our next 5 cards, and we've got the Research Center, which we've already started building one of. Ancient Astronauts gives me 2 Crystallium when built, gets me green cubes for every blue card that I've built, and 10 points. That's huge, but to build that is really difficult and is going to require generals, and I've already made the decision to focus on financiers, so I'm going to skip that for now. Tank Division, financier, and blue card or blue resource. Human Cloning gets me a gold, gets me a financier, and it's fairly easy to build. I want that for sure. Robotic Animals. Again, not too hard to build, but gets me more gray and generals. I don't really know if I need that right now, so I'm going to take the Human Cloning. And then let's see what I've got for resources here. I've got black, green, and gray. I know that this is going to be built before green, so I'm going to have 1, 2, 3 green that I can build. I don't have any gold. I'd like to build that one. So I want to dig in the deck for something that gives me a gold resource. So I'm going to do this. I'm discarding these 2 cards, or recycling these 2 cards for a black and a green. That's going to go down here on my cultural production zone. And then I'm going to discard these 2 cards to draw 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm hoping that, good. I'm not even going to look at the other cards because I don't want to be tempted away. I want that gold. Recycling that card and discarding the rest to place 1 gold out right here. So we move into our first production phase. I start with the gray material resources. I produce 2. 1, 2. So I will place those here on the Research Center. Next, we're moving into black, or energy. I produce 1. So I will place that here on the Research Center, instantly unlocking this card. So those resources go back, and I add this one now to my production tableau. Moving on to green science, I produce 3 of those now. 1, 2, and now I realize I shouldn't have done that there because I could have instead done the gray and gotten the green right now, but I'll just go ahead and start this next one off. That also finishes this one here. So now I've got this card added, which gets me 1 of these financiers. And because now we're moving on to gold, I now produce 1 gold. I could place it on there, but this is just endgame scoring. And I'd love to start getting more stuff from my cultural production, so I'm going to actually place it there. And then we move into the next round, back to drafting. So we've got Treasure of the Templars. Lots of blue, going to get me some gold, get me some Crystallium, 3 points. I'm not producing any blue, but that might be worth having because I need 2 Crystallium for these 2 cards. But I also see that I'm scoring on gold, and this is producing gold. But to get 5 blue is going to be really hard, so let's hold off on that for a second. Here we see 3 gray, and a black gets me a gold and a gray. That is very, very awesome. I'm definitely going to try to build that. Blues here, 2 points per gold, which would be great if I could build more gold. Lots of science. Remembering we're producing 3 science, which is going to lock this one in. And this one's going to get me gold per greens. I think I might try to finish this one first before I get over to this one, because this is sort of repetitive help. So I'm definitely going to try and build that one. Then we've got this nuclear plant that gets me lots of black, but right now I don't really need a whole lot of black. And yeah, but discarding that's not going to help right now. Let's see what we've got. I am going to discard this one. Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, they're both 5. 2 points per gold is great, though, if we can get there. But I don't know that I'm ever going to have that much blue. And I'd rather have this one. So I'm going to get rid of this blue one here to take 1 blue. Yeah, 1 blue, and place that down here on my cultural production area. And I have these 2 cards left. I'm going to try to build that one. It may bite me later on, but I'm going to try my best to get that done. Means I've got this that can get me a black cube. And we need 2 blacks currently. I could always use one to make Crystallium as well, but I will go ahead and discard that for a black cube. Placing it doesn't really matter where. We still need 1 gray for this to happen before I generate grays. And if I generate grays, then I need 1 more card that I can put some gray on or it's wasted. So we've got 5 new cards here. The Airborne Laboratory green and blue could be nice to have. Zeppelin gets me blue for 2 blacks. Less exciting. Super Sonar is just a point, gets me lots of blue for black cards, but I don't have any black cards. I'm not going to waste my time on that card, I think. Secret Lab, 2 gray and 3 gold gets me lots of green. N points per green. This combos nicely. I need to keep that. I hope I can get there. And here's a military base that's gray. I want to trash that simply to get a gray there. Now I've got 3 more cards, 1 of which gets me green and 2 of which get me blue. I'm building 3 green. If I want to get more gold from this one, I need more. I'm making 2 gray. Yeah, we can do that to get that. All right, then that's fine. I'm going to use that green to place 1 here. And then I'm going to hope that I'm going to trash these 2 and draw 5 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we'll hope now that we get one that produces green. We do. Yeah, I'm going to just forget about the rest of those cards and do that to produce a green. Because that's going to get me a bunch of gold this turn. All right. Production. I'm making 2 gray. Yeah, that's a shame. I wanted that, and I'm not going to get there this time. 2 gray, like that. Hold on a minute. Yeah, that's fine. Then I produce 1 black, which goes there and gets rid of that. So I get this card, which gets me 1 financier, and will produce me a gray and gold moving forward. Next we move to green is 3. 1, 2, 3 I'll place out on this card like that, which instantly finishes that and gets me this card. And now we move into gold, and this is producing gold for green. So I've got 1, 2, plus gold for green. 3, 4 gold this turn. So I will place this one first, 3, and then a 4th one right there. And we move on to the next round. Now, I do definitely want to get this one done next turn. I'm producing 4 gray, no, 3 gray. I need 2 here. So one of them could go here, but if I wipe that once and do it again, that would be wonderful. Because if I can get a bunch of supremacy gains off of this, and I'm focused on gray, green, and gold, which is perfect because that's what I'm trying to score as financiers. So let's see what we get into here. Secret lab, we've got one of those going already. That would get me more green, and a crystallium, which is less important right now. I need to start focusing on some blue resource. I thought I had placed out a card that got me blue, but I guess I got rid of it. So cryopreservation gets me more points for that. And I'm going to need to work on getting lots of green, but we will have lots of green coming. Research center could get me more green. Offshore oil rig, I wouldn't mind that. But I need to work on this blue. So let's see if we've got, I don't have any gray for that yet. All I've got is 3 green possibilities. Neither of those are giving me resources, but remember I get gold for green, so that's nice. I want to have something that gets more gold. And scoring for greens could be nice. So I'm going to put that secret lab down. I'm going to spend one of these greens for its green. Doesn't really matter where I put it. And I'm going to discard the other 2 for 5 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 like that. And let's see what we've got. These big blues are never going to happen. Those would be nice, but I don't care. I'm going to discard. We're going to recycle this card for a gray as my 1 card. Placing that here on cultural production, which clears this and moves this over. So we're adding 2 when we calculate supremacy bonuses. I'd like to keep driving that up if I can, but we'll see what happens. All right, we've got an offshore oil rig, which could be nice to have. But I don't know that we're going to have blues. I got to start focusing on those blues. Industrial complex, that might be nice. Let's think about that. Mega drill gets me blue. I need to start getting blue. But I don't have any black stuff available to me. Hold on. I'm going to have to build that because I need to at least start working on blue. Oh my goodness, these are wonderful. But I don't have black cards either. This one gets me 2 more guys and a thing and lots of gray. This one gets me more gold and more points for that plus that. But I don't think I'm going to be able to get this blue and these black. I might just give up on that. Hold on a minute. I can always scrap this to send it back here, but I'm going to need 2. I get 2 crystallium if I finish that for those 2. So I don't need that card. Yeah. This would be nice to have, but I don't know that I need that either. Hold on. 1, 2 black. I don't necessarily need that. I'm going to take that one instead, aiming to get a blue somehow. And then if I can get extra scoring, I don't know that I'm going to have enough black, but that's actually not that hard, just 3 cards. And I should have the gold, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then this one's not going to happen, but 5, 6, potentially. And that means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 gold. Yeah, we can do that easily. All right, then. I'm going to say, how many grays do we get? We've got 3 grays. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 I need right now. I'd like to start pushing this up. Then I'm going to, We don't have a whole lot of anything. Trash one of these golds to take a gold for this. And I think I'm going to trade those 2 cards to see what we can get. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like that. I do still need a blue for there. 1, 2, just 3 gray. That would get me more gray. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I get 3 plus 3 is 6. 1, 2, 3. Black and gold is more important than green to start. 1, 2, 3. Just 3 green. Yeah, we might be in a little bit of trouble, but that's fine. The question is, do I place a gray out right now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I need another gray and I don't have it. So that's not worth doing gray. I might do that blue so I can get it. But I'd rather get to this, but I don't think it's going to happen now either. But producing extra 2 gray could be nice as well. No, we'd still need 1 extra gray. Yeah, no, I'm just going to... Do I have a blue? Yeah, I do. I'm going to discard or recycle that blue to place the blue there. We move into production. I get 3 gray. And remember, I get that +2 supremacy bonus, so I do get 1 financier for supremacy that time. I'm going to place 2 here and 1 over here like that. This comes off like that. And I do get 1 crystallium for that. It doesn't matter where I place it because I'm aiming for both of those things, but let's do that one right there. Then we move into black. I only make 1 of them. We'll start over here for that. Then green, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then that's it, 5. All right, but 5 gets me supremacy, so I get to take 1 more of those financiers. And we will do 1, 2, 3 here, like that, and 1, 2, like that. This is done. But actually, I'm going to place 1 of these on this card instead. This gets finished like that, and I get 1 more financier from that. Then we're producing gold. 1, 2 gold, and then 1 for each green. So 3, 4, 5 gold gets me another supremacy bonus of that blue financier. I'm going to place these 5 out somewhere. I want to have more gold coming from this card. I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 green. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 green. That's fine. Yes, okay. But wait a minute. Yeah, that doesn't matter anyway. I can't get these 2 green unless I use a card to get them right now. So we'll see how this all plays out. This card is going to be useless, which means I can scrap this at any time to recycle, but the recycle bonus for a card that's already been placed in construction can only go onto your Empire card. So we'll hold off on that and see if we can use it to make a crystallium at the end of the game. Moving into our final round. We've got Ark of the Covenant, too much blue, I can't use it. In fact, I'm going to instantly use it to place a blue out here like this. Industrial Complex. Casino City would be really awesome. We've already got 1 growing. There's no way we're getting that much black. And the Underwater City would get me some blues, but it's a little bit late for that. Yeah. And the nuclear plant would get me a ton of black, which wouldn't be a bad idea, except that I think what I'm going to do, because it's getting late game, I'm going to recycle that for a black cube to put that here like this. I got 3 of these. I'm not building any of these. So I'm going to discard these 2 like that to draw 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if I got a gray, which I did, I'm recycling that one to finish this off. Moves this to the next one, supremacy gain 2. And then I should have more than enough gold. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 gold. So I'm going to trash that or recycle that to get 1 more here. Then, again, cities of gold. I don't have blues. Underground city might not be bad, but I can't get there in time for it to mean anything except for 3 points. But we'll set that aside because it might be nice. 1 point espionage agency, 1 point giant dam, and submarine. I need gray, black, green, and blue right now. Gray, black, blue right there. I don't have a green, but I'm just going to do that. I'm recycling these 3 like that. Gray, black, and blue. I want to push this and see what happens. Then I'm going to trade those in for 5 and see if I can get a green. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to have a lot of leftover resources. We'll see what happens. And I did get lucky. There's a green. So we're going to recycle that green to clear that again. Black, gold, blue, and gray, which pushes this now to recycling bonus 2, which doesn't matter because I'm not recycling anymore except this card. And I might as well do that now because I'm not going to finish that. I don't have any blue. Recycling that gets me 2 gold, but they have to go onto my empire because it was already being built. We move into our final production phase. Step 1, gray. I'm producing 1, 2, 3 plus my supremacy bonus of 2. I get 3 cubes, but I do get the supremacy bonus, means I get 1 more of these financiers. And 3 grays go out. And I just realized I made a mistake, because I can't get both of these. Gur. Let me check that last hand. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I'm going to undo that. I'm going to take the gray instead of taking the green. If that's cheating, I apologize. But we'll slide that back 1, and I will do that. And instead of taking that green, I will take 1 gray instead to do that. Because then I can place 1 there, and 1, 2 like that to finish this card off, which goes there and gets me 1 more financier. We produce black, 1, 2, and I need both of those right there. So I am very glad I did that. That goes away. Whoops. Let's go there to create or build this one, Casino City, which does get me another financier. And then I'm producing green. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 green. Again, supremacy gets me 1 of these, and I just realized I should be doubling supremacy. So I should have also doubled the gray supremacy, so I'm going to take 1 for gray and 2 for this green right now. And if I made a mistake in counting, I'll check it in editing. Placing out these 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 gets me that green finished. And 1 more financier. Make 2 stacks of these now. Producing gold, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then 1 each for green. 6, 7, 8, 9 gold. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And I get double supremacy gain is 2 more financiers. I place out these gold, and this is where I wasted a ton of my efforts. 1, 2. I get a crystallium for that, which goes here. And I've got 4 more gold, which are useless for me. I put them there. 5 of those becomes a crystallium, which I could use here to clear that and slide this over. Still have a gold there, I think, unless I just Misplaced that, but it's not going to matter because it doesn't do anything else for me. This card is finished and moves here. I already took that Crystallium. This card is finished and moves there like that. And with that, that is the end of the game, and we move into final scoring. All right, so the game itself does come with this handy score pad that I will use for scoring. It is a little small on the screen, but I will walk you through everything that I'm doing. We're going to start first by, and I'm going to put 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 because this is a 5-game campaign, and we're playing the first scenario. First is X. This is the number of points from cards that score only points, which would be here is 2 and here is 1 for 3 points. I don't have any cards that score for black cards. I've got this card scores 1 for green and this card scores 1 for green. So I've got 2 points per green card. 1, 2, 3, 4 is 8 points. This card's giving me 2 points for gold. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 is another 8 points. I don't have any cards that score on blues. And this is where we sort of cross our fingers. I've got the original 1 point for financiers, and then I've got 1, 2, 3 here. So I'm scoring 4 points per financier. And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 financiers. So 15 times 4 is 60. Like that. I'm not scoring any points on generals. I would be 1 per general, but I didn't get any. So I add up my points. 3 and 8 is 11. 11 and 8 is 19. Plus 60 is 79 points. This 15 financiers scoring 4 points each was huge, but with that, I successfully beat the game. So with that, we finished the first scenario. I'm going to pause here and put a timestamp here and again after I discuss the end of scenario results. What I'm going to do is this. The scenario results are going to give me something right now, and then they're going to give me something else in addition to that. The something they give me right now, I will show you and I will explain. The something else I'm going to keep a secret, but I will explain a little bit in my final thoughts after another spoiler tag. So completing the scenario, we get a little story that says, it didn't take long for culture to take root in each empire. Little by little, painting, cinema, television, and radio had found a place in every home. But the empires were divided about what attitude to adopt toward this little corner of individual liberty. Should they let it prosper as a safety valve, or should they control it to prevent dissidence? So there are 2 things that are happening for resolving things the way that we did. First, if we reach the final space of cultural production, we would take a specific card. I did not. So I'm not taking that card. Instead, it says, each player who has not reached the final space of cultural progress takes a censorship card, because I did not do cultural progression. And I will show you this censorship card now. And what this is going to do is going to allow me to, once per game, rotate this card to discard 1 entire hand of cards, meaning 1 of those 5 card stacks, in order to draw 5 new cards from the deck. So basically it's a mulligan, it's a wash. I throw the 5 cards away and I draw 5 new ones. That's great if I draw a hand of cards that I really don't like. In addition, it says the winner, which I was, takes a famous host card. And the famous host is this one right here, and this one will allow me to use 1 Crystallium once to activate this card. And what this is basically going to do is, if I've already used my censorship card and this is activated, I can place a Crystallium on here, activating this and giving myself 1 more use of the censorship card. So it's basically a reuse of a one-time use card. So that's it for the end of the first scenario. We would be then moving into the second scenario and opening our first box, which is where the first big mechanism comes in. I'm not going to show that off to you here. I will talk about those different unlocks in the final thoughts after another spoiler tag. While we're here, I normally talk about components, but there's going to be an unusual one, because This is my first time sort of reviewing this game at all. So I do want to talk briefly about the components of this base game, but the problem is the people who are watching this video are probably people who are already familiar with the base game and curious about the expansion. That said, I'm going to do it anyway. This whole board setup is completely meaningless to the game, aside from the order of operations and the fact that it tells you which of these bonuses you get if you have supremacy. That said, I think it's wonderful. I love the way that everything fits on the board. I love the way that everything is where it needs to be. I love that it shows the flow of stuff. The little cutouts here marking the sort of draw deck and discard deck. It all works really nicely, and it disassembles really nicely as well, which means everything fits into the box very nicely, and it doesn't need to have a huge box just to fit this board, and I appreciate that. You'll also see this 1, 2, 3, 4. That tells you the direction that the draft is passing in a multiplayer game, and there's actually a little circular token that tracks those rounds as well. These tokens are super heavy duty, very clear, very easy to see. All of these cards, I've shown them to you a little bit as we were going through, but I'll just show them to you again quickly. The artwork on these cards is wonderful. There's actually quite a bit of theme in this game. It doesn't really come through so much in the mechanisms of the game, but the cards, what they're labeled and what they're sort of giving you and how they score really does kind of make sense, and it is giving quite a bit of extra flavor to the game. And now with this scenarios of this campaign, you do feel quite a bit more of that theme coming through, especially because the scenarios here are set up as such to sort of tell a story through. The only component that I have out right now that I can show you and I should show you from the expansion are these failure cards. Every time in the solo mode that I fail, I'm going to take one of these 2 cards. And if I ever fail again and should draw another card, meaning my 3rd fail, I will instantly lose the campaign. So I have to be able to get through all 5 scenarios without needing to lose 3 times. And with the first 4 scenarios, if you lose and get one of these, you still move on to the next scenario. But in the 5th scenario, if you lost and got one of these and you still could keep playing, you'd have to repeat the 5th scenario until you did win. So that's a pretty cool addition to the solo mode. The only other thing I can show you is the inserts of both boxes. The base game looks like this. It's kind of a silly insert, but it does do okay. I split the development deck, this big stack of cards, and put half in here and half in here. This one you can see, here's that round tracker I was talking about, holds all of the Empire cards, and I put all of the resources and baggies in here. And this one is where I store these big sets of tokens, also in baggies in that spot. And again, I don't want to pull this up right now, but everything fits diagonally across this board perfectly well when the board is broken in half and fits very nicely in the box. The expansion box is just a bit smaller than the main box, and I suspect that maybe you might have to remove the insert, but if you have all the expansion content out of the packaging that it comes in, it would likely fit very nicely in the base game box with everything else. But right here, I'm not going to show you a whole lot because there's a bunch of stuff hidden in here, but there's envelopes for each of the scenarios. You may have just gotten a glimpse of something hiding under there. I don't really want to show it to you, but there are a bunch of these secret boxes in here as well that you open as you go through the campaign that add more stuff in as well. I'll talk more about that in my final thoughts at the end. So that's basically all that I want to show you for now. Meet me back up top, and I'll let you know what I think about the base game itself because I haven't reviewed the base game until now. And then also I will share my thoughts first vaguely and then in more detail about the expansion campaign. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the playthrough. This is going to be an interesting one for me to discuss first because it's a campaign game and part of me doesn't want to spoil anything and part of me wants to spill everything so I can talk about it and tell you how much I enjoyed all of the things individually. But first, let me quickly talk about the base game itself because I never have on this channel, and then I'll get into different levels of spoiler on the campaign. First off, the base game for me is wonderful. This is just goodness in a box. I love this game. This is a game that I wasn't sure of at first. I'm a fan of drafting games, but in solo, that's not really that much of a drafting game, right? Which I'll talk about in a second. But more importantly, this is that sort of pure mechanical engine building. I get this, which gives me this, which gives me this, and by the end of the game, you got all this stuff. And none of these kind of games had ever really connected with me before, particularly Splendor. I know Splendor is a game that's well loved. I played it a couple times and I just never really got into it. So I've sort of avoided these kinds of games for a long time, and I can't really even remember what made me jump on this one originally, but I'd heard lots of good things, so I decided to try it out, and boy am I glad I did, because there's just something about the engine building in this game that I start with a few resources, and then I use those resources to build buildings that give me more resources, to build even more buildings that give me even more resources. And by the end of the game, I'm producing a ton of stuff, putting it out into all these different buildings that are then ultimately scoring me a ton of points. It just feels good to watch these little bit of something grow into this huge machine that gives me points at the end of the game. And sure, there's theme there as far as the topics of the cards and this sort of idea of business and science versus war and sort of industry. But ultimately, it's a very mechanical game, but I love the mechanisms in this game. And it plays so well solo. Yeah, granted, you don't get the card draft that you would in the multiplayer game. You're just playing these sort of decks of 5 cards. But you do have the ability to discard 2 of them to dig through the pile for more stuff. So there is this ability to kind of churn through the cards as if you were passing hands of cards with the people next to you. So it definitely still works, and in fact, I think it works very well as a solo mode. In the base game, I especially love playing with the scenarios because it sort of forces you to try out different kinds of strategies and tactics because there are certain things that you need to accomplish by the end of the game. But anyway, none of that is super relevant here because chances are, if you're here watching this video, you already know something about the base game and you're curious about this expansion. And this is where things are going to get hard because part of me wants to keep everything a secret because part of the fun of this campaign is the unlocks and going, wow, that's cool. Wow, that twists things up. Wow, that was fun. Wow, that was neat. And there's a lot of that in this box. I played through War or Peace, the previous campaign expansion as well, and I enjoyed that one, but ultimately it felt sort of like the base game, just sort of stretching the boundaries of the base game, twisting up the way things worked a little bit, stretching some of the core mechanics or core mechanisms in the base game. This does much more. I'm going to start by saying this does much more. This sort of stretches the base mechanisms further. It adds in 1 or 2 really brand new mechanisms, and then it changes up the gameplay in each of the scenarios in unique ways that does play differently every time you play a game in this campaign. I've played through this campaign twice because there is a branching decision path at one point. You know that as soon as you open the box because there are 6 envelopes and the instructions tell you only play 5. So I've played all 6 scenarios. I've opened everything. I've seen everything. I love this expansion. This is my favorite expansion for the game right now. I will tell you, if you're only going to get one expansion, in my opinion, this is the one to get. If you're going to get more, get this one last because this one will continue from previous stuff. You don't need to have played War or Peace, but you can use the stuff for War or Peace when you play this. The corruption, and I don't remember what the other word is in that, the expansion, the big box expansion that's not a campaign, doesn't quite work friendly with this at first, but I don't want to say anything more than that. Just know that by the time you're done this, you will also be able to use that one as well. Don't want to spoil too much right now. We're going to get into spoilers in a minute with a time cut as well. I just want to say that I really, really love what this one's doing. Little tweaks every single scenario. From the second scenario, it introduces a new mechanism that's sort of an extension of the base core mechanism. I don't want to say any more than that right now. I will after the spoiler break. But it stretches the game one extra step, and it really, really feels good, and that carries through. Then there's one more big mechanism thing in here that I don't want to spoil until after my spoiler break, but adds another thing in the game that's not there to begin with, and that comes later, and I don't want to talk about how it works and what happens to it later until after we break to the break. But both of these additions made the game that much more fun and tweaked my brain and twisted my brain in unique new ways that really made this game feel fresh even more once again after so many plays of the core game and the previous expansions. this game reminded me why I love, or this expansion reminded me why I love this game as much as I do. It just feels good. And when you do score higher than that point threshold, now granted I played on hard through both of these two campaigns, it means 10 games I've played on hard, which is the 60-point threshold, and I only lost one game out of all of them, so I probably could have played one level higher. Again, you're only allowed to fail twice, well, 3 times, twice to continue, and the third time is a game over in solo. So I'd rather not get the game over, because again, the puzzle is the fun part. But if you are good at this game, you might want to try the even harder levels. I think expert is 70 points, and I probably wouldn't have done very well there. But that 60-point threshold for me was sort of just right around the right spot, and I lost once and I won once with a 60 dead on. So I think that's right around good for difficulty as far as that's concerned. Now, spoilers are coming here. If you don't want to hear them, cut out now. Thank you all for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed the playthrough. If you're a fan of this core game, I strongly recommend this one to you. If you need some more convincing, give me 5 seconds and I'll be back to spoil a little bit more. And that is 5-ish seconds. Spoilers. I'm not going to spoil any of the little stuff that happens in any of the scenarios because I want you to see some stuff yourself, and those are interesting. I'm not going to spoil any of the post-campaign content because there is quite a bit. There's 2 envelopes or 2 like booster pack kind of packs and 1 box that you unlock afterwards. Each of those booster packs unlocks from one of the pathways, so you do have to play both or just break the rules to open both of those, but the box will open in either case. I'm not spoiling any of that because that's fun to see on your own when you finish the campaign. But I am going to talk about those 2 mechanisms that I talked briefly about or broadly about in my earlier comments. Because these are the 2 things that make this game stand out even bigger and better and more interestingly than the original War or Peace campaign. And the first one of this is the idea of culture. So this is the Leisure Decadence campaign. The focus here is very much on getting away from the industry war machine kind of thing and going back to leisure. And culture is the way that this is introduced. And culture here is added in as kind of an extra resource, except you're not going to be placing culture out like you do with any of the other resources. It's kind of like a cross between the resources and these sort of tokens, the blue and red tokens, the generals and the, I forget what they're called right now, the industry people. It's sort of a combination between the 2 because there's a new track that gets added, and every time you generate a cultural resource, you move up on that track, and I believe it's 5 spaces tall. And after you fill up that track, you drop back down to the bottom. And every time you drop back down to the bottom, you're going to get 1 token, just like financiers. That's what they're called. Like the financiers in general, you'll get 1 culture token. Plus, at the same time, you'll get 1 multiplier token. So every time you go through this loop, you're going to get a token, and you're going to get a multiplier that makes all of those tokens worth 1 more point. So it's this really cool additional engine that you're churning through, getting extra points and getting more things that generate those extra points. And then you're going to find some cards later on that just like you unlock a free financier or a free general when you build the building, you'll do the same thing with one of those culture tokens. Or you'll start finding buildings that will generate those culture tokens as their ability each production phase. So it's just 1 extra step or 1 extra stretch of the core mechanism, but the way that it adds to the game and the way that it freshens the game by having this additional resource / token at the same time and having another point generating engine added to what's already a really great set of point generation really makes things fresh. And this continues through the campaign, and it just feels really cool to have this extra addition. Second spoiler, another warning, because this one's even cooler unlock and more surprising, and I don't want to spoil it if you don't want to hear it, so jump to the end if you don't. Again, thank you for watching. If this is where you leave me, I'll see you next time. Please check out this game. Strong recommend. Remember to like, subscribe, click the bell icon, yada, yada. Spoiler done. Here we go. The next unlock, the next mechanism, big mechanism that's added to this game are workers. This adds a worker placement, kind of worker placement mechanism to this game. And I'm going to spoil how this works in the campaign when it's unlocked in the campaign, but it changes up in the end game content, and I'm not going to talk about that because that's slightly different and that's fun too. And I actually haven't had a chance to play with any of the post-game content stuff. I've read all the rules and I'm excited about all of it, and I can't wait to try it out. But I haven't had a chance to try any of that yet, so I don't want to comment directly on it. But in the scenario that introduces the workers, this is how they work. During the production phase, when you're producing all of your resources and placing them out on cards, before producing resources, you've got 4 workers, and you're going to place those 4 workers out onto your cards that you're in your construction zone. And the rule here now, the change here now is you can only place resources that you produce onto cards that have workers. So basically the workers are working on those buildings, and if there's no worker there, you can't place a resource on that card. Now, Crystallium is special. You can always place that on any card. But otherwise, you can only place resources out on cards that have workers, which makes this restriction really, really interesting because now I can only place out resources on at most 4 buildings. And that's super restrictive, but in a very interesting way because it really makes me approach this puzzle from a new direction. And I love the way that that feels. And then there's more. Because at the end of the production phase, well, let me say this. If you complete a building that has the worker on it, the worker comes back to your Empire card. And then at the end of production, any worker that's still on an incomplete construction building is going to be able to place out 1 resource on that building of any type for free. So this is great because now you're generating extra resources by leaving these workers out doing their job, and you can stretch and build things that you normally wouldn't be able to build, and that's really cool. And even more important, every worker that's back on your board at the end of that round means their building was built and they came back, you're generating 1 culture for. So now you've got another way to turn this culture engine, which makes things even more interesting. So you've got this really cool new restriction on how you build buildings or how you place resources that really makes you rethink the way the core mechanism works. But at the same time, so sort of balance off this new difficulty in tactics or thinking processes, they're giving you extra resources for having the workers out on buildings that are in construction. And they're giving you more culture for having those workers home and relaxing and dealing with their leisure and decadence, which gets you more points by turning that culture engine. The addition of these 2 new things is huge for me. I know that the corruption in I can't remember again what that is, and I apologize, I'm sorry. But I know that that one added that sort of idea of extra stuff that comes with negative resources, that you have to sort of pay stuff to get more stuff. And that was interesting, but I'm never a huge fan of like negative stuff like that in games because it just hurts my brains in ways that I don't like to think. But the addition of the culture track and now these workers just tweaks things and pushes things and changes things in different ways that makes this game super fresh again. Again, there's lots of small other stuff that I'm not talking about, and there's still all of the post-game content. I have to say, I'm a huge fan of the base game, but this expansion makes it that much better. Big, strong recommend for this one if you are a fan of the base game. I'm so happy that Lucky Duck got this for retail release in America because I was worried that I was never going to get a chance to try this one, and boy, am I glad that I was able to. Again, big, strong recommend from me. I hope this video was helpful. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, as always, I do ask that you like, subscribe, and click the bell icon below, and I'll see you all next time. Thanks.